of Coaches. Hello and welcome to this episode of Voice of Coaches with Safa Marafi. It is my pleasure today to interview life and career coach Dania Dbaibo Darwish. Dania is a holder of a bachelor degree in business administration and a master's degree in psychology from the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. She is an associate certified professional life and career coach, a certified master level NLP practitioner, a certified hypnotherapist, a trained counselor, and an experienced soft skill trainer. She has a background career in both sales and marketing of consumer goods and as psychology instructor at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. For several years now, she has been running her own practice of coaching your 3 Ps, also known as personal and professional progress. A coach, counselor, hypnotherapist, and trainer. She has been coaching diverse and leading national and international organizations like and not limited to Thomson Reuters, M1 Group, Morpho, SETS, the Daycare Syndicate, and Hoops. Dania is the founding president of the Lebanese Coach Association and is very active in other NGOs. She is known for her dynamic, upbeat, and positive personality. Hello, Dania.
Hi, Safa.
How are you today?
I'm doing brilliantly great. Thank you. And you?
I'm doing amazing.
Are you stressed out?
I'm not, of course, as long as I'm talking with you.
That's good to hear.
So as an expert in de-stressing people, can we say, how can you define stress here?
Well, actually, stress has been defined in so many ways. Sometimes it was defined as something internal. The person describes it in terms of, let's say, you would hear someone saying, I am stressed out. At other times, it is defined as something external, like our house is crazy or our firm is crazy. And sometimes it's described as a process, like saying, for instance, I have too many things on my plate. So really scientists and researchers examined these and they finally came up with a conclusion that perhaps the best definition of stress is that it is a perception of the inability to cope with the demands of situations. And this is when the person feels a lot of discomfort. And sometimes we can put it in a mathematical equation, like saying stress equals the pressure the person is subject to divided by his or her coping abilities. So it's relevant, it is subjective, it is an internal evaluation the person comes up with. That is in brief what stress is.
So it's internal and external here.
Could be.
Okay. So Dania, you call yourself the stress detective.
Yes, I am.
So how do I know as a person if I'm stressed? I mean, some people suffer from stress without knowing it. I guess I'm trying to say is, are there symptoms that the listeners of Voice of Coaches should be looking for? Maybe just a few examples will be an amazing help for us.
Yeah, you know what, Safa, stress has a variety of symptoms and they affect our thinking, our emotion, our behaviors, and our physical body. So you can detect a cluster sometimes. For instance, if your thinking went something like becoming unable to concentrate, or you're exhibiting poor judgment, or seeing only the negative in things, this is alarming, you know. And this affects our emotions, like the person becomes moody or irritable or even short-tempered, and many times they become agitated easily or have feelings of overwhelm. And then there are also symptoms that could be physical on the body. Many people experience a tension headache, for example, or they have nausea or dizziness or rapid heartbeat, or even they lose their sex drive, or become they experience frequent colds or flu. And many times symptoms can be behavioral. People can shift to eating too much or too little, or sleep too much or too little, or isolate themselves. So if many of these symptoms are found in the person, it is alarming. The person is under a lot of stress. And what people should know is that too many stressors on the person can become really blown out into a serious medical disorder or even a psychological disorder. So because it is known and it is researched that underlying so many psychological distress is usually stress. Like for instance, depression, it has stress underlying it, maybe because something terrible happened. Anxiety also, it has stress beneath it. Anger, for instance, or being maltreated, or the anticipation of what's coming. And all of this is subjective. It is relative to the person, how they perceive the world to be, how they perceive their future, how they perceive the state they're in, and the meaning they give it to all the whatever is happening, all the stressors outside of them. It is the meaning that makes the difference, the interpretation of whether they can handle it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you mentioned here the word stressors.
Yeah.
What exactly are the stressors here, Dania, and how do you work with your clients to identify their stressors?
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes the stressors are very apparent. And stressors usually come in two forms. Either they are external or self-generated. Sometimes we create our stress. For instance, the external stressors, many times in collecting the history about the person, I start asking open-ended questions, for instance. And they come up with, they here in Lebanon, they love to share their life story. So they do mention different stressors. These could be the place they're living in, for instance, the house they're living in. It could be too small, too dim, or even they have social stressors, for instance, dealing with other difficult people, or having a very difficult partner, or difficult parents. So these people, we call them emotional vampires. They suck their life energy. Mm-hmm. Also, external stressors can be the place where they're working in, or how they're working in. These could be organizational stressors. They could be carrying a work overload. And many times the stressors are mainly major life events, like the death of a loved one, or job loss, or divorce, or accidents, or illnesses. And it could come just in daily hassles that accumulate, like commuting, like traffic jams, like feelings of loneliness, or marital conflicts. You see, the external stressors come in different forms. But sometimes people do generate their own stress by creating a specific lifestyle that feeds into more stress. Like, for instance, consuming too much caffeine, or not having enough sleep, or having an overloaded schedule, for instance. And many times people talk negatively to themselves, this negative self-talk, and they start criticizing themselves so much, or having this pessimistic thinking. And some people are just prone to having a stressful personality type, like the perfectionist, who wants to perfect it all, or the workaholic, who is continuously working all the time. They do not take a break. They do not take a breath. So many times they are people pleasers. They say yes to everything, and eventually they have a lot to carry on their shoulders. So when the client talks about their life story, automatically I start pinpointing to these as accumulating on the threshold of what they can bear, because if you don't handle the stress right, it builds up, and too much stress leads to what we call strain, which is extensive stress. And the extreme case is having a total burnout, which means the person loses it and becomes paranoid, and they become really so negative, and they can't handle it. So
go into depression, for example, severe depression, a chronic.
Yeah, they become depressed with a lot of other signs like
Disorders.
yeah. So it could be medical also disorders.
So
Mm,
yeah, to avoid, Dania, to avoid those stressors, can
yeah.
you just mention how can we manage our stress and deal with the stressors? I know the stressors differ from person to person,
Yeah.
but in general, if you have a general advice, for example,
Yeah.
or something that can help.
You know what, Safa, as coaches, we do try to ask questions that help in discovering solutions because mainly the stresses are exhibited in having problems. I always try to explore with the client if they can change their situation because to deal with stressors or a problematic situation, you either have to change the situation or change your reaction to it. So we explore if the situation can be changed. For instance, if someone is having a hard time on his job or her job, for instance, I explore the possibilities if they could find something more attractive. Now, if they cannot change this, many times I start exploring with them if they could avoid what's in that job that is stressing them out. Like if they are carrying a heavy load, maybe they need to be assertive with their manager and express the fact that they cannot carry that heavy load. So there are two ways to changing the situations: either alter it altogether or avoid it. Sometimes the stressor could come in the form of people who constantly irritate you. So you start avoiding these people. If it's talking about topics that irritate you, many times there are fights over political issues, for instance. Just avoid talking about political issues. And if the situation cannot be changed, for instance, I always try to explore with them how can they change their reactions to that situation, because many times you just need to accept that the situation exists. For instance, if a teenager is having a difficult parent, giving them hard times, maybe explore with them if it is possible to accept that the parents are difficult as such and move on. Just deal with them that this is the way they're thinking. And alternatively, we can just adapt to that situation by reframing that a problem exists. For instance, if they're complaining about their parents, I try to direct them that they're lucky that they have parents to start with, because so many children have lost a parent or two.
So you are changing the mindset here.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, the reframing of things or looking at the big picture. Things like that, Safa. Now this, when it comes to specific problems. Alternatively, if the stressors are being accumulated over time, this is when an explosion could happen. So we might as well take care of the buildup of stress, which leads to that explosion, by taking breaks or doing some stress-busting techniques and things like that.
So you mentioned stress-busting techniques. Can you give us just few tools that instantly beat the feeling of being stressed out? I believe you call them as you said, stress busters.
Yeah. You know, the number one stress buster which I love is the deep breathing. It has instant effect, and it is the natural medication for all anxiety disorders. You just have to breathe, and it's really simple, and it takes just few minutes. And deep breathing goes something like taking a very deep breath by inhaling and exhaling very slowly. And if you memorize these numbers, 428, 428.
428.
Yeah. You inhale to the count of 4 slowly, and then you hold that breath to the count of 2 slowly, and then exhale to the count of 8 very slowly. And the tummy would be going up and down. And while you're doing that, you tell yourself, I'm relaxing, I'm relaxed. Each time you inhale and exhale, it relaxes you. And if you do them 20 to 30 times, that would really reduce the physical arousal, because we do have physical arousal in our body whenever we experience stress. It affects the physiology, and it also affects the thinking, because our brain waves go like crazy whenever we're stressed out. There is very high arousal. Their amplitude is very high. Once we start the deep breathing, the brain waves slow down. And this is when you're able to think more clearly. And if someone has stress all day or experience this nervousness all day, I always recommend that they use it 3 or 4 times a day. Morning, noon, afternoon, and at night. Just breathe slowly every time. This is very powerful, Safa. And there are alternative other ways, like doing an hour of exercise or jumping and dancing, because exercise is known to really kick off the neurotransmitters necessary for the happy mood. 1 hour of exercise is equivalent to an antidepressant pill. So they do this hour of exercise, and frankly, no one ever regrets an hour of exercise. So their brain waves and all their physiology and all their mood lightens up. And this is also another effective stress buster. Alternatively, they can listen to music or dance. Many institutions now rely on music therapy to deal with problematic health problems, like health issues like cancer, for instance. It's using music therapy. Also meditation, 10 hours of meditation by just focusing on breathing or saying only one word or visualizing only one color. It takes you to somewhere else. It really clarifies the thinking with time. Meditation is difficult. It doesn't happen perfectly the first time. We really need to practice it for a month, maybe, to kick off the habit. And many times I take them to La La Land. Just visualize yourself in the most beautiful, amazing, relaxing place. Just go there. Visualization takes you on an instant vacation. And when they start living the relaxing place in their mind's eye and just feeling differently, it calms them down. There are so many other ways, like positive self-talk, like connecting with other people, like humor, like laughing out loud, digging up jokes, watching a DVD that makes you laugh, or simply creating a me time, just doing nothing but massage, for instance, taking an appointment for massage, or just filling the bathtub with aromatherapy and just soaking yourself there. We really can use many things to alleviate the feelings of stress. But most importantly, we need to target our thoughts to become more positive, think in terms of solutions. And we need to target the physiology, which means changing your physical state from being very nervous to calm. Or if it's, because sometimes the stress response can be either depressed or over-aroused. So, depending on what you're feeling, choose to change your bodily state.
And you mentioned something very interesting about the self-talk.
Yeah.
Can you just give us quick examples, like how to change the words?
You said something very important, how to change the words. Some people worry so much about things that most probably will not happen. And they even criticize themselves or think in terms of helplessness or hopelessness. For instance, compare this statement to a different one. Let's say if someone says, I'm stuck, I'm not able to do anything about this. This already puts the person in a paralyzed state. And remember, stress is the perception of the inability to control things or to cope with things. If we change the statement from I'm stuck to I'm working on solutions. I'm working on solutions. I really am working on solutions. I'm trying to find the solutions. I will find a solution, and I will.
The solution is there.
Yeah. This is the thinking that will probably lead to getting a solution in the end. And many times, مثلا, you would hear someone saying, I can't tolerate this. It's beyond my control. I can't tolerate it. If we change this to, it's a challenging situation, I'm working through it, for instance, it would really make the person have a different mindset or a different approach to whatever he is dealing with.
So
right?
It takes time with your clients to adapt to the new self-talk.
Yeah, you know what? I challenge them with identifying their negative self-talk many times. I ask them, write it down. Whenever you observe yourself saying something negative, write it down and instantly transform it to something more positive. It would work in alleviating their stress feeling. If they just become more aware of how they're talking to themselves.
Conscious and awareness is a great word here. Being aware of the self-talk, it will definitely help with other tools you gave us today, which is great. Yeah, Dania, I really enjoyed having you with us today on Voice of Coaches.
I enjoyed it, me too.
Love you, Dania, so much, and love your de-stressing tips and hints to our listeners on this fine day. If anybody would like to visit Dania website, her website is coachingyour3bs.com. Coaching your 3 as a number, B as in pen, and S as in sugar.com. So Dania, again, thank you, and sending you and our Voice of Coaches listeners positive vibes.
Safa, I want to thank you, really. It was a pleasure being hosted with you, and I love you more. And I'm sending double the positive vibes back to you and to all those wonderful listeners. Stay stress-free, you all.
You are such a great coach, Dania. Thank you so
Safa.
much.
You're most welcome. Bye-bye.